All right, Shalom. All praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakaha Kodash. Double honor to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the hopefully elect. All right, I want to do a quick little reply. All right, to a list of demands that Iran has given. All right, Babylon the Great, and and the demands that it wants or that they want are really not realistic given the circumstances. All right, so I was watching this guy I watch, Prepper Dog. All right, he's a prepper guy. He looks like an Edomite. I think he's Jake. The reason why I say I think he's Jake is because he always brings out scriptures. Like every video he brings out a scripture. He seems so sincere. With his zeal for the Most High that it makes me think that he's a Jake. And that's just my own personal opinion. And brothers that know, look, I could be biased. I could be biased. Because I look like an Edomite, so maybe I'm quick to jump the gun. That could be true too. But nevertheless, I want to reply to what he had said here. All right, and I also got the list typed out on Google. All right, with the Google chat or whatever. I'm saying, the AI thing. All right, and if you look at this list, you're going to say, yeah, there is no way in hell that these demands are getting met. All right, so Iran is going to keep that Strait of Hormuz closed. All right, so we see the Lord is moving, right, with his prophecies, right, particularly World War III, Armageddon, and also, Jacob's trouble. All right, the time of, great calamity, great, distress, famine, death. All right, the sword, plague, tribulation, okay, coming here to America, Babylon the Great. All right, and the rest of the world. All right, so without further ado, we're going to let this play. This is fair use, fair use.
Oh yes, the list of demands that the Iranian leadership is saying that the United States leadership has to abide by for there to be a possibility, even just a possibility of the Strait of Hormuz to reopen again. I'll start with that one. That's quite a nugget. The Iranian state media has listed them out as follows. Now, these are putting this out to President Trump and the administration as far as what they must do to for the Iranian side to say, okay, the strait looks like it'll open back up. Maybe it won't, maybe it will. Number one, never threaten Iran with any language or insult that insult the sanctities of this nation. So don't ever threaten or insult them. Number two.
So you can't talk shit, all right? You got King Nero 47 in office, and they're saying if you even talk smack about us on your little Truth Social platform, we are going to keep this strait closed. Not even just threaten. I can understand the threatening part, but just talking crap. They're going to keep the strait closed for that,
In the war and aggression against Iran and its allies, Lebanon, Palestine, Yemen, and Iraq.
So they said Palestine. So basically, Israel, the small hatters, they got to back off and go back to where they came from, which is, Ukraine, basically, in Germany and Poland, So that's not going to happen, obviously.
Forever. Number three,
Yeah,
lift the naval blockade and withdraw its military forces, naval and air, from around Iran. Number four,
withdraw. Basically, accept defeat, Babylon is not going to do that either.
Pay the damages of the two wars of aggression and imposition on Iran without any reduction. Lift the cruel and illegal sanctions against the Iranian nation. And number six, unconditionally release the frozen and stolen assets of the Iranian people.
So give them straight up hella money, hella reparations for for all the destruction that this war has caused.
So you must withdraw, you must pay for reparations, you must help in rebuilding what you have destroyed. Leave, don't ever come back, never threaten them again with language like that has been the case. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that is going to you think the Trump administration is actually going to do that? And if they did, even if they did, that doesn't guarantee that the strait even opens back up, right?
Yeah, they could be bluffing, but I don't think any of these demands are going to get met. All right. So I got the list here on Google. All right. I typed in Iran's list of demands. It said Iran has issued a strict list of 6 demands that the United States must meet before it will reopen the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz to maritime traffic, meaning boats, following a military conflict and naval blockade. All right, it says the 6 demands. The official list of requirements was published by Iran's Supreme National Security Council, led by Secretary Mohammad Bagher Zolgadar. Whatever, man. Y'all brothers know. Whatever. Some Ishmaelite, all right, or Elamite. All right. It says, end to threats and insults. You can't even talk shit, and this current president loves to do that, okay? Nero 47 I'm talking about. It says a permanent end to U.S. military threats against Iran and a cessation of perceived insults to the country's national and religious values. So you can't crack jokes about, Ishmael's religion, that whole magic carpet business, moon worship, dance around the big cube, can't make fun of them anymore. All right, it says, cease strikes on regional allies, a permanent halt to all U.S. military attacks and operations against Iran and its allies in Lebanon, Palestine. No more massacring these children in Palestine. These small hats, these Amalekites, these Edomites, right? Which you do have some Israelites among them. All right, they can't help but slaughter these people, man. It's in their nature. They're the wicked. Yemen and Iraq. Okay, that's not going to happen. And let's actually bring this out. All right, Jeremiah 49 and 20. Therefore hear the counsel of the Lord, Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, that he hath taken against Edom, which is who? Against Edom, which is what? Or who? The so-called white man, the white race. All right? And his purposes that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely, listen to this, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Who is the least of the flock? The small hats. They're that small, tiny little country, small population, in comparison to the rest of the nation of Edom, all right? They're going to draw who out? They're going to draw Babylon out into World War III, Armageddon, okay, the Valley of Jehoshaphat. All right, surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. See, because this is going to end with nuclear destruction of America, Babylon the Great, as well as of the land of Israel, But unlike America, the land of Israel will be cleansed and rebuilt, And really that fire is the cleansing agent, but it's going to be repaired and rebuilt and restored, and we're going to inhabit that land and much more land in the kingdom, when Yahweh Shai comes back. We can't wait, babe. Man, just saying it, when Yahweh Shai comes back, I know you brothers feel the same way. It's like, music to our ears, we can't wait, Can only imagine how, the men, I can't even imagine, let me say, how the men that have, been in this thing for 40 years, 35 years, 20 years, how they feel, beginning with Elder Apostle Tahar on down, That's patience, patiently waiting upon the salvation of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Let's actually grab that real quick. Just kind of going in the spirit, we can jump back to what we were talking about. Lamentations 3:26. It is good that a man should both hope and quietly wait for the salvation of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. That's the example we have, with our elders, man. They're an example of just hoping and quietly waiting for the salvation of the Lord Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. Just keep pushing, keep soldiering on. Hey, that's the example. That's what we got to follow. But anyways, let's get back to this list of demands. All right. So it says military withdrawal, the complete lifting of the U.S. naval blockade, and the total withdrawal of U.S. naval and air forces from the region surrounding Iran. And the U.S. is the big bully on the block. All right. It says Babylon is referred to as what? The hammer of the whole earth. That's why Babylon has all these military bases in these other countries. That's why Babylon has the strongest military, the most influential political culture, the most influential, let me say, in terms of the culture that it pushes, that Mo agenda, that sick freakism, I'm saying, that so-called women's liberation, that Queen of Heaven worship spirit, which that's nothing new, but the political the political and the cultural norms that America pushes, America is like that hammer of the whole earth, especially when you factor in that military, Jeremiah, and the scripture also says that Babylon is a golden cup in the Lord's hand, and he hath made the whole earth drunken with it. All right, that's drunken with what? With the philosophies, with the culture, with the way, the American way of life, eating, McDonald's, and being a flamer, and committing adultery with another man's, women being harlots, disrespecting your parents, and anything goes, and do any religion you want to do. That's that philosophy that America has pushed on the world. All right. But this is Jeremiah 50:23. It says, how is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? It's talking about America. How is Babylon the great America, become a desolation among the nations? Right. And when is this hammer of the whole earth going to be cut asunder and broken? Upon the nuclear destruction. Okay. But right now, America is still that hammer of the whole earth. So Iran wants the U.S. to withdraw bases in that area. That's going to be a hard no, okay? That's not in Esau's playbook to do that, all right? Now, this one says war reparations, okay? Number 4, it says full financial compensation and damages incurred by Iran from recent military operations and conflicts. So if I'm not mistaken, they're basically saying you got to pay us for all the money we spent on, missiles and bullets, or mainly missiles, because it's mostly about missiles and drones, right? Missiles and drones, and soldiers' salaries and stuff, right? And then they also got to pay for what? For all the infrastructure they destroyed, all the homes they destroyed, loss of human life, right? It says lifting of sanctions. It says the comprehensive removal of U.S. economic and trade sanctions levied against the country. Okay? So no more sanctioning then. All right, this one says release of frozen assets, the unconditional unfreezing, and release of all Iranian financial assets currently held abroad. So this is not going to happen, okay? You could just read this first one, end to threats and insults. Trump is constantly threatening these people and constantly insulting them. That's his nature, to make threats and insults. So that's just not going to happen, man. All right. Isaiah 19:4, it says, and the Egyptians, the Americans, because this Egypt is talking about spiritual Sodom and Egypt, America. It says, and the Egyptians, the Americans, will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord. And we believe very strongly that cruel Lord would have to be Donald Trump. Okay? And a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai of hosts. All right? So this guy's a cruel Lord, man. He's not, he's not playing around, man. he can't be reasoned with. All right. And these Iranians, these Carmenians, as they're written in Second Esdras, they're not playing around either. They're down to keep the strait closed, till all hell breaks loose, and keep it closed. They know that the American people are going to feel this. They know that we've been feeling it. But those of us in the truth, man, we're not worried. Because we have our God. We have our Messiah. We have Yahweh Wa Yahweh Shai. So as long as we stay doing what we got to do, for Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, then we're going to be good. All right. This is 2 Esdras 15 and 30. It says, also the Carmenians raging in wrath shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood. All right, Carmenians is talking about what? Iranians, Persians, okay? So, excuse me, we're seeing these Iranians or Carmenians raging, today. So, they can't be, they're not backing down, man. These are a warrior people, I gotta believe that a lot of them are Jake, but it's predominantly Elam, if I'm not mistaken, But anyways, also the 2 Esdras 15 and 30, also the Carmenians raging in wrath shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians. All right? So these Carmenians are raging, man. They're not playing around, okay? So, yeah, it's looking like this thing is going to stay closed, and Thawada Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, may it stay closed. May all hell break loose soon, and may the Lord deliver those of us of the hopefully elect up out of it. May the Lord push this microchip through Esau, and may Yahweh Shai be sent back, as soon as possible, That's the spirit we're in, man. So, hey, with that, all praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kodash. Double honor to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the hopefully elect. Shalom.